Good day everyone, my name is Johnny Browijs. This is part 2 of a series of 3 presentations illustrating the rapid change in environmental governance in China. During the first part last week, you saw how fast China's environmental policies and enforcement have changed over the last 5 years. In today's presentation, you will learn in 15 minutes how digitization is changing the rules of the game, how China is effectively leapfrogging environmental governance. In my last presentation, next week, I will illustrate how companies with presence in China can leverage this digitization to mitigate part of corona-induced impacts and to become more green and competitive at the same time. As mentioned earlier, the government since 2007 started collecting data. And since about 3 years, an enormous amount of data has become available online. For example, with regards to the quality of air, surface water, emissions of specific factories, environmental, industrial and urban policies, rectification programs, compliance issues, and litigations, NGOs and media monitoring performance of key polluting enterprises, and so on and so on. This information is available via different online channels, different media, and via automated monitoring systems, and it is continuously being updated. The data actually is so vast that it allows you to picture constraints that an individual company may face and how this may affect their operation. These constraints may be related to the operation's location, for example, areas that are sensitive to urban, industrial or ecological planning, or to scrutiny from public stakeholders, or to pressure from local governments running behind to meet their environmental objectives, or to measures addressing acute environmental problems during weather conditions, or related to high-level public events, or related to industrial upgrades in the sector, raising the bar on environmental or industrial performance, and so on and so on. Combining this information with the 5-year planning and its implementation at the national, provincial and local level, and in line with industrial and urban plans, combining all this not only allows to understand the current constraints on any operation, but also allows to picture how this will develop over time. In other words, it allows to anticipate future impacts on the business and allows to proactively manage business resilience. Imagine you would be able to have access to all that data continuously, and that you are able to interpret that data to understand the impact on your operations. Imagine you would have one online portal that continuously evaluates the data for you in terms of potential disruption of your operations, supply chain, and even clients. Such a portal would allow for getting risk profiles for individual factories and would allow for getting notifications in case there are any changes. This portal could also be used to communicate and address specific issues and allow for performance or resilience reporting. What would such a portal look like? Here is an example. This portal shows individual factories in China, each with a color representing its risk profile. Red means there is an immediate risk for interruption in the production. This portal is dynamic. Factories will flash in case their risk profile has become red because of new issues or new data. Alerts for the portfolio are listed on the right. If you are a business leader or a supply chain leader with multiple factories or suppliers in China, you may want to quickly see which one of your factories, suppliers, or partners or clients require your attention and why. You can then click on the one that you are interested in or on any alert on the right, and a more detailed risk profile pops up. Like this one, illustrating the nature of the problem, whether or not it is mitigatable. If yes, how? If no, whether or not it can be managed. If yes, how? If not, how much longer the factory may have, and how it can be monitored. The factory, for example, may be a bad performer, not following environmental regulations, or may be facing a lawsuit or a complaint, or they may face temporary production restrictions due to external factors that may be manageable, or they may require upgrades in their production process, or they may have bad luck and be in a region where they will need to fade out, move away, or close. They may be in a situation that they are allowed to continue as long as they comply with regulations and provided there are no complaints or acute air quality issues. In that case, it is a balancing act. Local governments need to balance employment and environment to keep the population happy, but the key is they cannot afford having environmental issues. This is why some issues may be mitigatable or manageable for a longer or a shorter time. This also means that companies can take measures in cooperation with their suppliers, such as storage of products anticipating temporary interruptions in the operations, or helping ensure companies comply with specific issues that are part of a campaign of industrial upgrading, and so on. The platform allows for profiling risks even without communicating with the factories. It also allows to communicate with them, with the factories, to help them become more aware and to help them address specific issues. It finally also helps to verify and to track mitigation measures. Via the platform, one can also access the original sources of information, such as the regulations, complaints, notifications, and so on. Another example most of us are more familiar with is the COVID-19 response. Once the authorities understood the nature and the potential impact of the virus, the alarm was sounded and increasingly drastic containment measures were taken, orchestrated first at the level of Wuhan and later nationwide. The online portal monitored and evaluated the impact of measures on operations as they rolled out in different regions. For example, closures of transport ways, people lockdown measures, but also labor contract measures and business support measures. The critical question again was balancing the impact on the population and economy and enforcing measures rapidly. The same approach was used, drastic measures supported by live data and social governance. The lockdown is now over, but everyone in China now has a QR code on their phone that shows their virus risk status real time. People's temperature was monitored everywhere. For example, every exit or entrance of any living accommodations, restaurants, working spaces, hotel, transport means. Cameras outside were also monitoring. Anyone with symptoms got contacted and tested, and in case of positives, the system took action. For example, if I would have been in the location with a potentially infected person, my green code here that you see would change to orange, and I would get contacted and be tested. In case of a positive, I become red. Orange gets quarantined. Red gets treated. The system knows who was where, what time, etc. In short, in China it quickly became almost impossible not to be identified and tested, and any new infection would be noticed and addressed immediately. This de facto is an early version of the Internet of Things, IoT. Now, how did China's society react to this? People accepted it as a way to protect themselves. More so, during containment, new online ways were rapidly developed and implemented not just as a temporary measure, but integrated in the normal way of working. Examples are apps such as DingTalk, allowing for digital cooperation, and technologies such as drones and driverless cars found new application for deliveries. AI was used to optimize the logistics involved. As the graph shows, using data and technology increased speed and ability to intervene, accuracy, and insight. In the same way, China is ramping up the use of IoT in monitoring factory emissions. I have met factory owners who had inspectors visiting them, asking about certain performance of their environmental treatment systems and telling me they had no clue how the inspectors could have such specific insights in their operations. Combining big data with AI allows for solutions and insights which even go beyond human understanding. One example is drones under certain circumstances can interpret from the foam on top of a wastewater treatment system that certain aspects of the treatment operation are suboptimal, potentially leading to exceedances in wastewater discharge. And this is just one example. Let's go back to our story of environmental governance. As part of the 2025 manufacturing program, China in 2018 also established green manufacturing criteria. Green manufacturing is put forward as an innovative way to make companies both more sustainable and more competitive. Together with these criteria, specific requirements are put forward. Specific requirements regarding major pollutant emissions from key industries, reutilization rates for industrial solid waste, and energy consumption relative to industrial value added also were issued. We can see the criteria go beyond just the reduction of emissions and minimization of resources and waste. It aims for building green supply chains and a green business ecosystem as part of the eco-civilization I mentioned before. The green manufacturing system is currently voluntary, but it provides incentives, and it wants to use market mechanisms for making companies compete to become greener. This shows which direction the government is taking. An interesting observation is that the development of this system is driven by the Ministry of Information and Technology, so not the Ministry of Environment. So everything is driven digitally. Companies can apply for Green Factory certification, get verified via approved third parties, and finally get certified via the local authorities. Local authorities are asked to select the best companies and to incentivize and showcase them. Central authorities pick the best from the provincial list and do the same. Incentivize and showcase. Last year, the authorities started issuing public notifications about which specific environmental issues in specific industries and specific regions they wanted to see addressed. They stated that companies that during inspections can illustrate that they are aware of these priorities and that show self-accountability addressing them, for example having a plan in place, that they would receive less inspections and will simply be monitored via the digital system. On the other hand, companies unaware of these priorities or not showing self-accountability or addressing them will receive more frequent inspections and may even get cross inspections from other departments. Various market mechanisms are being explored to support the best performing companies and to fade out the poor performers. An interesting development to monitor in this field, for example, is green financing. All companies receive an environmental credit score, which will be linked to the corporate social credit score and which will become the measure for how these market mechanisms apply to them. The result is going to be that over time, only the best green manufacturing companies in China will prevail. Okay, we are nearing the last part of this presentation. Let me give you a quick summary on what corporations are doing to face this situation in China and which response strategies we observe. Corporations are facing external factors and dynamic factors. Data and digitization allow for a more dynamic risk management, and companies that are able to navigate through the Chinese characteristics of environmental governance are turning this into a competitive advantage. Their business is more resilient, and they provide more reliable financial predictions. Opportunities that come with this also are cost savings, risk prevention, increased responsiveness, and so on. First-in-class companies have realized that data allows them to re-engage with their business value chain, sharing the benefits of the outcomes with suppliers and clients, leaving the competition behind, as you can see here. So, what is your next move? Winston Churchill used to say, never waste a good crisis. In my third presentation next week, I will illustrate how companies that are part of the business ecosystem in China can leverage this rapid digitization to mitigate part of the coronavirus-induced impacts, while at the same time becoming greener and more competitive. Finally, one slide on Greenment. Greenment is the largest environmental consultancy in China with satellite offices in Europe, Belgium and the US. The company originated from a management buyout by the staff of the environmental engineering business unit of Jacobs Engineering in China. Greenment also developed the earlier mentioned online portal and serves both foreign and Chinese companies in and outside of China. Okay, we have reached the end of my presentation. If you are interested in the online portal or in green manufacturing, or if you want to hold a strategy workshop on how you can work with China in a better way, you can find my contact details here. I hope this presentation made you think and made you realize that it's your call to learn and surf on those waves. Thank you very much.